So today's workshop is all about stencils. I called it Stencil Heaven because it's like, oh, I just love my stencils. And as I mentioned before, I have cut my own stencils as well from a nice heavy plastic. There's a company called Graphics, and they make something called Duralar. And you can get Duralar, which is plastic sheeting in a heavier grade, and that's what I use to cut my own stencils. And I actually use a stencil cutter to do that, which is a device that looks like a soldering iron, and it has a tip on it with a point so that you can go around after you've made your design on the plastic, and it lets you cut the design out. And I do that on top of I have a piece of metal. So if you have any sort of piece of smooth metal, that's the best thing to do your cutting on top of in order to create your own stencils. Now, most of what I use, though, are stencils that I've purchased or that I've been fortunate enough to have given to me. So the folks over at the Crafters Workshop, so it's TCW, you'll see on their stencils, the Crafters Workshop. They have tons of amazing stencils. And then also my friend Ed Roth, who is the owner of Stencil One. So he designs stencils. He's amazing. And he lives in New York City and is, all over the world grabbing designs from inspiration all over the world. And actually, I first got into stencils from reading his book, Stencil One. And now he has stencils available that we are going to be giving away today. Um, Stencil One stencils. I did a big show with Ed, and he was demonstrating using Pebeo, the company that I work with here, Pebeo's what's called Cetacolor, which are fabric paints. And he was using fabric paints with his stencil designs to put onto fabric. So he does that a lot with Levi's jeans. He works with Levi in New York City and all that. So when I was at this show with him, hey, LC Vintage, welcome in. I was lucky enough to be sitting next to him as he was demonstrating doing the stenciling on top of fabric. And so he gave me all the stencils at the end of the show. And so I thought, what better way to have fun today on Stencil Heaven with my friends on YouTube and on whatnot than to give away some stencils. So we're going to start by doing a giveaway right now. And you'll get to choose which of these 4 stencils you want. So let me go ahead and get the givey going. So here we go. Is it running now? Yeah. Phew. Okay, it is now running. So go ahead and jump in on the giveaway. It'll be to choose one of these 4 stencils that'll show you when the giveaway is done. And yes, Crazy Junk Art. Thank you so much for letting me know. So what is the difference between a stencil and a stamp? Let me show you. A stencil is like this, and it has holes in it, and we're going to deposit paint in different ways through those holes. A stamp, I have some here that I actually bought from another person on Whatnot. And so this is a stamp. And sometimes they come on a block and sometimes they come loose, but you see how it's raised up and it's going to make an impression. That's a stamp, and that is the difference between a stamp and a stencil. The stamp is raised up and you're pressing it down, whereas the stencil has holes in it and you're depositing paint or you're spraying or something like that through the stencils. And one of my favorite things to do is to spray through the stencils, which we're going to do in a little bit. Now, I do want you to know that right next to me, I have a bin. It's called a butcher tray. And so it's a metal tray with a little lip to it. And I've got that filled with water. And the reason for that is that as we use our stencils, we'd prefer not to have the paint get all gunky inside the stencil like that, right? At least I do. When I'm working with them, I like to clean them right away. Now, my friend Ed, he was just doing a couple of days show, so he didn't worry too much about keeping it clean. And so these have some paint on them, but I'm going to show you a little later how to take that paint off. But the butcher tray is so that as I use the stencil, I can throw it into the butcher tray, which is just a long, narrow, well, not narrow, but not very deep tray so that they can stay moist, and that way they're super easy to clean off. And now, if you were with me 2 weeks ago, I did a workshop on metal leaf, or what I like to call mirror foil. So you see the shimmeriness here, and that was putting a glue, a what's called a metal leaf sizing through a stencil, because I showed you in that class the paste that I used to go through the stencils using a palette knife, and that gave the design here. Well, afterwards, in order to create these little loop-de-loops up here, I went and looked through my stencils to see what I could find, and I was able to find a stencil like this that had all these beautiful loop-de's on it. And now you're going to notice, though, that I wanted only a certain part of the stencil. I didn't want all of the things immediately around here. So what I did was I used something called washi tape. And this is washi tape. It comes in all different designs. These are, hey, Critter Chops, welcome in. These are actually washi tapes that I bought on Whatnot from another person offering craft supplies. And so these are a low tack tape, and they work amazingly well when you want to put down tape and then easily pick it back up. Plus they're pretty, right? So I have a whole stack of them, and washi tape is the perfect thing to tape off the area where you don't want the imagery, right? And then I could just focus in this area right here for putting the paint instead of getting it all over the place. And then the rest of what I did here was I just once I had this in the middle, I just freehanded the rest of them. But I wanted to get a good, impression on that first set. And this was acrylic paint that I put through there. All right, so your sprays and your acrylic paints work really well. So when I say sprays, what do I mean? I mean, for instance, this, which is a mixed media art spray. And this is permanent when it's dry. Oh, look, we're Critter Chops. Woohoo! Critter Chops won the giveaway. Congratulations. So Critter Chops, this is my friend who owns this company called Stencil One. His name is Ed Roth, lives in New York, and I've worked many shows with him. And so these, that's what I'm giving away today. We have 4 to give away for the show. So you can choose between the pineapple, the sunburst, the rose, and this sort of pop art. And there's paint on here now, but I'm going to show you in a little bit how to take that paint off. I actually did a YouTube short on that, how you can remove the paint from your stencils if you do have dried on paint right there. So let me know whether you want the pop art here, the pop art circles, the rose, the sunburst. Hey, let's put your name on that one. I actually won something I really want. Thank you. You are quite welcome. You are welcome. I've gotten amazing things from Critter Chops. So if you're here on the Whatnot stream, please go follow Critter Chops, because he has some great, great stuff that he offers during his shows, and I've bought a lot of goodies from him. Oh, okay. So let me put this little guy away. There's actually in the Buy It Now, if you're on Whatnot and you go to the little house at the bottom of the screen, under Buy It Now are there's a series of 3 of these, and it's a take on tea. These are Asian teacups, and then this is the character for tea, and where it says party, and sorry everyone, all my deals are for Tristina only. Stop it. I love your stuff. What can I say? Your watercolors, your just everything. I have so many of the things I got from him around here. This is a ruling pen. This is a ruling pen. Tons of really cool rulers. I mean, go watch Critter Chop's show. Okay, so let me show you with these. If you go to the Buy It Now on Whatnot, that's that little house at the bottom of the screen, and then you click where it says Buy Now. You will see that I have this and 2 others, all with the tea theme, and they can come like this. They'll come with either a black or a white matte. So most of my artwork that's in the Buy It Now on Whatnot, most of it is available in a black or a white matte. So you can decide which you would like to have it mounted in, and then it will come to you with the mat that you selected. All right, if you choose to purchase one of those, and of course, as an artist, I always appreciate folks who buy my art. Yeah. All right, let me put that away to keep it safe. And here is another piece of artwork that incorporates stencils. So here, this is a stencil directly onto, this is watercolor paper. Although you can do these same processes on canvas as well. So don't be afraid to use your canvas. I'm just using paper for this particular show. And so here, this is one, just one of the layers that I've done with a stencil here. And then in addition, this actually has a lot of texture to it as part of a stencil here. And notice I don't always fill the whole stencil because I like that very organic look, but you may be more like, you may want it more precise, which is why it's helpful to tape off sometimes areas and then only get those areas. But this is also a piece of artwork that is available. What's it called? Take That Big Step, it's called, because there are all these affirmations that I wrote on it around here. So this one is available in the Buy It Now on Whatnot as well. So again, if you are on YouTube, I do invite you to come over to Whatnot. And if you're new to Whatnot, you will get a $15 coupon to be able to use the $15 anywhere on Whatnot. So back to this spray. This is a mixed media spray, and what I love about it is that it's permanent when it's dry. So this is by the company Marabou. That's their name there. And if you go to my website, you are able to go to supply links and find these types of supplies and a lot of the other art supplies, the paints that we're using today. I don't actually sell the paints. For the most part, there are a few markers that I have available in the Buy It Now, but for the most part, what I sell is my artwork that I make with these fabulous paints. So during the show, if you're interested in finding where you can order these, just go to my website, which here you'll see is deetzart.com. That'll flip you over to deetzart.gallery. And on the menu, if you go to supply links, you'll be able to find links to these Marabou sprays, as well as a lot of the other paints that we'll be using today. But I do use these because they're permanent when they're dry, and they're designed for mixed media. But I'm also going to show you when we get over the table how you can make your own sprays. And the trick is to use airbrush medium or something called flow medium. So that's where you take an empty jar like this, and you can use any of your acrylic paints. So I can take an acrylic paint from the tube like this and put it in with airbrush medium. To use an acrylic medium is better when you're creating a spray than it is to use just water. And that's because when you put just water in a large amount in with your spray, you're breaking down the acrylic polymer, and then your pigment may not stick to your paper very well. So the trick is to use something called flow medium. Liquitex, I think, makes flow medium or airbrush medium, which is very water-like, and combine that with your tube paints, and then that'll give you an amazing spray that will stick to the paper and stay there, stay permanent. That's what we want. We want it to stay. Okay. Now, before we get started, I am going to cover my hands with a product called, oh, thank you, Crazy Junk Art. Excellent tip. Yes, we're actually going to do it in a few minutes when we go over the table. But I did want to share with you, and this is not linked yet on my website, but I will definitely put that link in there because I think it's important. Most of the time, I like to work with bare hands. I do have gloves in the studio, and when, for instance, I'm marbling where I know I'm going to get super messy, I wear gloves. But when I'm doing things like collage, and then I'm going to do some stenciling, hey there, Wicked Witch Wonders. Welcome in, welcome in. Then I like to use something called Invisible Glove, or it's also called a barrier cream. And what this does is you put it on your hands. I'm going to take my rings off because I have already today gotten paint in my ring here. It's what happens. So let me put those rings away. And now what I'm going to do here with the Invisible Glove is I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that into my hands and then put it all around my hands, especially around my nails, right? If you kind of want to preserve your manicure, right? And it soaks right in. It's not greasy at all. It feels more like a silicone. It feels like a silicone glove. Like I just put a glove on, but it's stuck to my hands. And so that is a great way to protect your hands until you go and wash them. Now, if I go and I wash my hands and then I come back and I'm going to do some more painting, then I will put another layer of the Invisible Glove on because that will, when I wash my hands, it comes off. But if you get paint on your hands regularly, then this is a lifesaver because you can just wash all that paint right off with the Invisible Glove. Isn't that cool? Okay, so let's go ahead over top of the table and oh, I see some more people came in. Oh, okay, that was the Shauna's Treasures Art. Welcome in, welcome in. So if you get car sick, close your eyes for just a second, and we are going to go up over top of the table. So if you don't have it already, these are my bona fides, or my the information about me, where you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. Again, my website is right here, Dietz Art, so feel free to snap a picture of that. And of course, if you are on Whatnot and you want to watch the show over or recommend that one of your friends come and watch the show, after the show, I go to YouTube and I cut out the introduction and I cut out the auction that we're going to do later on Whatnot, and then it's just the lesson. And you can find that on my YouTube channel, Tristina Dietz Artist, or if you just type in Tristina and then the word art and search on that, you will find me on YouTube. And of course, if you're on YouTube and you want to come over to Whatnot, just go to the go into the comments or the description and click on the link, and boop, that'll bring you in to Whatnot. And then if you are on YouTube and you'd like to send me a tip, because on Whatnot we have tips available and little hearts and things, which I appreciate from my artist community over on Whatnot. But if you're on YouTube and you would like to send me a tip, then you can go to ko-fi.com. So it's ko-fi.com, and just go to Tristina Dietz Art on Ko-fi and send me a tip there. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the paper that you see there is the paper that we're going to be working on, and it's the paper that I recommend highly as just an all-around excellent paper for doing experimentation with art. It is the Canson XL watercolor, and it's 140-pound paper. So you will find this again at the links on my website. There's a section for watercolor papers, and you'll be able to click the link there and find this paper that we're going to work on. This happens to be a big old honking pad. And then underneath here is something called palette paper. So this is sheets of, it looks kind of like a wax paper, but it doesn't give off wax like a wax paper would, and it's perfect for putting out your paints, for doing your collaging on, and just you'll see how we use it because I use it all the time. Right now, what I'm going to do first though is let's mix up some paint. Let's mix some paint. We're going to create our own spray. All right, because this, I love the sprays through the stencils. So as I mentioned before, we have, in this case, the golden airbrush medium. And there are other companies that also have airbrush mediums. What that means is it's a fluid version, a very fluid version of just an acrylic medium with no color in it. So we have to add color to this in order to create our spray. And there are a couple of things that you can do to add color to it. What I would do is use a permanent ink. So let me see here. I'm looking, I have so many different kind of inks, y'all. Your F&W inks, so I'm talking about an acrylic ink, okay? And then these are something very unusual. It's called Transmix Media, and it is by Koh-i-Noor, and they're actually very nice inks to use for the rapidograph pens or dip pens. It's very fluid and highly concentrated. So that's what you want. You want something that's fluid and highly concentrated. You can add that to here and some of the airbrush medium, and that'll give you a beautiful spray. Plus these Koh-i-Noor's various ink colors are also permanent when they're dry, which is what we want. But as an alternative, I was going to show you how you can take a paint like this. Oh, let's do this one, the orange fluorescent. Why not, right? So what you'll notice about this paint is it has a heavier consistency, right? See how creamy it is? Let me bring this up here so you can see that it has a lot of texture to it. It's very creamy. So of course that's not going to go through a spray bottle like this. And what I'm going to do is use some of the airbrush medium. So make sure that you shake it so that the acrylic is evenly divided there. And then we're just going to spray a whole bunch of this in here. Okay. The nice thing about making some yourself is that you can, oops, where did I put the lid to that? Oh yeah, this just twists. It doesn't need a lid. It just twists, and there we go. The nice thing is you can make some up as you need it. So let's put this in here now, which is the orange, fluorescent orange, which is beautiful. And that's a Pebeo color. Now, normally I would put a marble in here of some sort, a small marble. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one last minute. But you'll notice that these art sprays, they have, oh, let me get this one. You can hear they have a marble in them. So the marble helps to keep the fluid and the paint mixed up. So let's go ahead and put the lid on it and give it a good shake. And it's, as I said, it's much better to use a medium, an acrylic medium of some sort when you do this, in order to get your other tube acrylic paints to blend in with it rather than creating lots of chunks. So let's see how this, I see Pop One over on YouTube says, have you used alcohol markers, refills, as well as watercolor? Pop One, good question. I do use alcohol marker refills. They're very highly pigmented. Um, it's just the alcohol repels the water content of mediums like this acrylic airbrush medium, and so I don't. I use those. I use the alcohol marker refill pigments in order to go on paper or on canvas to stain it, and then I work on top of it with acrylic. Okay, so that's how I use those. Let's see how we're doing here. As I said, if I had a marble in here, it would go a lot faster. But you're beginning to see a really pretty orange color. Now, something about acrylic mediums. Acrylic mediums, when they're wet, are white. So if you look in this tube here, the fluid is white. And the same is true, for instance, this is a gel medium. So this is a gel, it has more texture to it, acrylic medium. These are both acrylic mediums. They just have different viscosities. This is very water-like, and this is more gel-like. And this one also is white. But in fact, both of these have no pigment in them, no color in them. And when they dry, they're going to dry clear. Okay, so the fact that this orange looks more pale, right? Doesn't it have more of a pastel-like color to it? When it dries, this airbrush medium will dry clear, and so you'll get a brighter orange than what you're seeing in here right now. Let's see if we take a piece of paper and I always have like scrap paper next to me here for experimentation. So let's just see what we get. Oh yeah. So you can begin to see that bright orange come out there. Now, if it's not poppy enough, like the color doesn't pop enough for you, you can just go in here and put a little bit more in. And you just want to get it to the consistency that you want, the effect that you want. That's a beautiful thing. It's okay to add a little bit of water, but I don't want you adding the whole thing water to paint. It's a little too much. That water and paint is perfect if you're doing acrylic paint pours, but what we're trying to achieve here, you definitely need medium instead. Now notice I'm going to put the lid back on while I shake it. Why? Because I'm famous for getting paint all over my studio. And so I want to be sure that, okay, now it's a little bit heavier, a little heavier orange color. But this is how I would mix up my own permanent paints, is using a medium like that. Okay, let's see if we test it on this side. Oh yeah, it's coming out a little more orange. Oh yeah, there we go. Now it's a little bit more bright, right? It's a little more dense, but I'm still getting the effects that I like to get with a spray, like the drippy coverage, that kind of thing. And we're going to try this with a stencil to come here shortly. Okay, so let's put that one away. And this, I'm actually going to do this because most of the areas that are around me here are quite full, so I want that to dry up quickly. Of course, you can make it dry by using a heater. I keep a heater next to me like this, and I do have these linked on my website under tools, and so I could just turn that on and make it dry faster as well. Okay, there we go. So let me look at all that beautiful color. Yes, color turns me on. What can I tell you? All right, there we go. So another thing that I like to do is I like to use something called gesso, or some people call it gesso. And that is a kind of a thick version of a primer, which is a plain white paint. Gesso does come in multiple colors. So this is the white one. For instance, this is a black gesso, and I'm going to be using the black gesso through a stencil here a little bit later on a piece that I started earlier. So this is a little collage that I was building, and I'm going to put something down here using the black gesso and a stencil. But here is some white gesso. Now, gesso does come fluid as well, so I like to get it in a pot like this if I'm going to be stenciling with it. And I get it in a jar like this, or a tube, which flows more. This is a little more, they call it what? Like it's an extra heavy or a heavy gesso, and this is a more fluid gesso. So the more fluid gesso I use to prime a canvas with, and the ones in a pot that are thicker I use through stencils to be able to get it to hold the stencil. Now let me bring up some stencils from my extensive collection here so we can talk about them. So you can find stencils all over the place, right? You can find stencils that are for kids, and so they have very whimsical and simple designs. I grew up in Asia, so I look for Chinese symbols or Japanese symbols. So for instance, this says fun with Chinese symbols, stencils, Dover little activity books. So this was actually when my kids were young. I was like, oh, I will take that. I found it when I was at the library with them or at the store. So these are nice. Now these are paper stencils. So you're not going to be taking these and dunking them in water after using them. I just spray them. I have a little spray bottle here next to me. And I have to clean these up right away as soon as I use them with just a damp cloth. But look at how fun these are. They just came in a little book, and they tear out of the book. And I have used them before, but look, see how clean they are? Because I had to clean it right away. I couldn't wait. But that's a paper stencil. And then at Michael's, I found these stencils. So this is a plastic. So these are ones that after I use them, I can throw them in my butcher tray full of water because the water will not hurt them. But there's happy, there's love, there's lucky. And so those are some Asian stencils. I also like to keep my stencils, if I can, on a ring like this. Can you see the little ring? And so that helps to keep them together if the stencils either come in a pack with a hole in it, or if the stencils actually have a hole in them, which some of them are designed like that. So these are all of my letter stencils. Even see, this was from when my kids were little, when they were learning the alphabet, but they still work perfectly as stencils for what I might want to do on my artwork. So I keep those all in there like that. So that's letters. And then these are 6 by 6 inch squares. And again, they come with the little hole in them already for you to organize them. So this is just one of those little clip. It's just a little metal clip like that, easy to open and close. And that helps me keep my stencils organized. Now, not all my stencils are neatly organized like this, but the ones that have the holes in them, I've been smart and I've organized them. So these, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Tim Holtz or not. These you can see are well used, and they are part of the Tim Holtz collection. He works with Ranger, which is a crafting company, but they have fabulous paints and fabulous artists and great stencils. So it's part of the Tim Holtz collection. This says stampersanonymous.com on there. Now, what I've also got on here are other ones that are, these are a similar shape, but a different company, and they're bigger. but they all fit on there nicely. And then this, can y'all see that? Yeah, that is called, what is it? Sequin waste. So when companies punch out sequins, they save the roll that they punched the sequins from, and you can buy a roll of what's called sequin waste, and that gives you a really cool design. Then, of course, once when I buy oranges or apples, I'm always looking for different stencil type. Could I use that as a stencil? And this makes an amazing netting stencil. And this was just from apples or oranges or lemons or something like that. Now, also in craft stores, these are for doing needlepoint. And so this is a needlepoint round. They come in rounds and squares. And so I like to spray through that. That also gives some fun designs. And what about these? These are, what are they called? Let me see. It says Royal Lace Medallion Lace Doilies, but they're paper. And they are a lot of fun to use either with spray or with a palette knife. So we'll try some of that. And this was a mat for your sink, but as you can see, it didn't stay in my sink. I took it and started using it to paint with because I really like the holes in the pattern. So when you're in the dollar store or the any of those kind of inexpensive stores, look for items that have interesting textures on them that you can use in your art studio. Now, Tim Holtz, I mentioned just a moment ago, and this ideology is one of his lines. It says ideology. So idea, IDEA, and then ology. And this is something called a mask. So can you see there it says mask? Yep. So what's the difference between a stencil and a mask? Well, a stencil, usually when you're using a stencil, you are putting paint into the holes here to get your design. With a mask, what you're doing, masking is also part of stenciling, and often a stencil will come with a mask. But this mask, you can see here, that design. So instead of laying this down with a hole there, this is what's left when you've punched the hole out, and this is the mask or what was inside that hole. So now this is put down on your surface, and then usually I spray around it, and when I pull it off, the area where this mask was did not get any paint on it. So, oh, here's a cute little crown. So we'll try the crown a little bit later. I love that crown. So we will use the crown, but here is what it came on. And let me see if do these pop out? Nope, they don't pop out. That is just so that you can keep it on there and keep it safe. He gives you a little piece of acetate so you can put it on there like that. Okay, but I will show you how to use the mask when we get onto the paper. Now, most of the time when you see stencils, they're like this. So you've got the outside stencil area, and then you've got your holes in it like that. These are letters and numbers. But you can also get stencils that look like this. So it doesn't have the edges around it. And this one is from the Crafters Network, or the Crafters Workshop. You'll see it says TCW on them, and that's the Crafters Workshop. But this way, you're going to use this as what? Like similar to, it's a combination between a stencil and a mask. It's pretty cool. Oh. And then this is something that's used for, it says here, it's a template. And you can get these with squares ovals, that kind of thing. And it's for technical drawing or for when you're doing architectural drawing, but I love using it to draw circles with. So I'm basically using it similarly as a stencil. And then after I've drawn my circles, then I paint inside the circles. But I have lots of these in different shapes and sizes. Here's another one here that has varying degrees of circles for the same purpose, for me to either spray paint through or to draw around them and then use them as the stencil shape. Now, in 2018 or 2017, I attended a show, and the Crafters Workshop I mentioned before, TCW. Um, at the end of the show, the folks there, because I've worked with them before, they said, "Hey, would you like to take these stencils? You know, we're done with them." I was like, seriously? That would be amazing. So this is the catalog with all of these different stencils, and these are what are considered a 12 by 12 stencil. So these are designed, they're very large, and they're designed to go on a page that you would put in a scrapbook. So scrapbooks are 12 by 12, the paper is, and so these are designed to give you shapes, stencil shapes that you can put on your 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. They're nice and large. And there is a company called Artbin, Artbin, who says no to free art supplies, right, Critter Chops? When they said that, I was like, I couldn't say yes fast enough. Oh, and there's a huge, see, there's a huge stack of them here, a huge stack. This one right here, I have a 12 by 12. I used it on a 12 by 12 canvas, and I did an artwork that I called X's and O's. So if you can see the X's and O's there, the piece of artwork's called X's and O's. And I love these ones that have these crazy marks. Maybe we'll use that one when we're actually on the paper surface. But there are lots of different companies. This is, again, the TCW, the Crafters Workshop, and this one's Carmen Medlin. So they, the Crafters Workshop actually will take designs from artists. You can submit them, and if they approve it, they will create, this is Julie Faye Fan Balzer. This is one of her designs, and they make it in the 12 by 12, and they make it in a 6 by 6 as well. So you get many different sizes out of them. But I do, when I'm working on large canvases, of course, I want large. There's a large one. I want large stencils. Plus, you can buy this film, as I mentioned before, you can buy the film like this thick Duralar, and cut your own stencils out of large pieces of Duralar. You can even get Duralar that's cut to size for you by the graphics company. It's GRAPH, or no, it's GRAFIX, and they will they'll do that for you. They'll cut you larger pieces like that. Okay, wow, that was fun. Nothing like a big stack of stencils to get the juices going, right? All right, let's get some paper out here. And I'm going to show you using the black gesso because it's black on white. Actually, you know what? I have that fabulous black paper from Michael's. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the white gesso on black paper and then the black gesso on white paper. So this is just mixed media paper in black. And so let me take one of my stencils that's a smaller one like this, and I'll show you exactly what I do with this. Let's see. Ooh, I love this design. So I will just do this. I'll take this off of here. If I wanted to do this whole piece, I would take some of the washi tape like this and take that off, and I would cover over this hole right here, right? Because I don't want, oops, wait a minute. I'm using too much tape. Let's get a smaller piece. And so I'm going to cover over this hole, right? Because I don't want the gesso to go through that hole. Now, I could just as easily use a thick paint like this from a tube. So this paint has a nice texture to it. But right now I want to show you using white gesso because you know what? White gesso is cheap. And if I wanted to, I could color the gesso, bearing in mind that the gesso is white. So let me put out some of the white gesso. Now, what I could do here also is let me tape this down. So if you want to keep it in place while you're working with it, you absolutely can tape it down to your surface. And like I said, I love washi tape because it's very low tack and it's pretty. Let's do this. And this will hold it down for us while we work. Now there are brushes called stencil brushes that you can use, but my favorite way to go into a stencil is with a palette knife. It just is. It's what I do. There are brushes called stencil brushes, and for some reason I don't see one here on my table. There's supposed to be one on my table. So hold on just a second. I'm going to grab one and show it to you. What's a typical stencil brush? Hold on a moment. Let me find one. Huh. What did I do with my stencil brushes? Okay, well, I pulled them all out to show you, but now I don't know where they are. A stencil brush essentially is a brush that is bristly and it has a flat top to it. So instead of being rounded, like some brushes have a rounded top like this one does, right? It's going to be a brush that is flat on top so that you can pick up paint with it and then dab it in to your surface here. My favorite way to do it is just quicker. Now, if you're doing fabric, I definitely recommend that you use a fabric paint and a stencil brush. Let me see if I have one right here. I may have another one. Aha! I have another one stashed over here. So if you look at this brush, it's got a lot of bristles and it's flat on top. So normally what you do with a stencil brush is you don't go directly to your stencil, you go onto your palette or a plate. A lot of times you can use a paper plate, and then with it in your brush, you tap, 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 tap. And that's, if you want more control, that is one way to use a stencil like that. Oh, it looks good. You want your paint to have a little bit of body to it, because if your paint is too flowy, you wouldn't want to use a fluid paint, because a fluid paint will go right underneath those edges and it's annoying. You don't want that. And then if I wanted more paint, I would just come back over here to my palette and pick up a little bit more and then tap, 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 tap. Okay, like that. Oh, might as well do this one too. Now that gives you a little bit thinner or a little flatter effect. And let me go ahead and dip this in here and use a paper towel to get some of that off of there, like a this. Okay, there we go. Now, what I do, because I'm an impatient painter, is I pick up some of the paint. This is the gesso. I pick it up on the bottom of my palette knife, and then I just scrape it across like this. And I get a completely different look. I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see. Right? So this is a little more dense. It's a little thicker, and this is a little more, it's thinner, and it doesn't have quite as much coverage. Okay, so my favorite way is dip into the gesso or dip into your paint with a palette knife and just go to town. with it like that. To me, it's quicker. But what you'll notice is it's more organic. You don't have as much control as if you're using the brush. Okay, so if you want more control, use the brush. If you're okay with having a little more of an organic look to it, then use the palette knife. Now that was using gesso, and the reason I mentioned a gesso's white. You can tint gesso with your other paints, just bear in mind it's going to make the color look more pastel because this is white, right? But if I'm going to put paint now on in some of these holes, what I want you to know is it's better on a black surface not to use a transparent. So this fluorescent is transparent. There's a little mark on here showing that it's transparent. So I don't want to use a transparent color on black. I want to use a color that is more dense or opaque. So you see how this tube has a little block and the block is all colored in? That means this paint is opaque. Let me see, there's another opaque one here. This is semi-opaque. You see where the little block has a line through the middle of it? That means it's semi-opaque. And for this, we're going to use opaque. All right. Oh, here's another one that's even more fun. That's opaque. Metallics. Your metallics usually are opaque. So let's go ahead and just do something fun here and use the metallic. Oftentimes, I will take the paint and put it directly onto the palette knife like this. Squeeze it right onto the palette knife and then go to my stencil like that. That way, I waste less paint by putting it on the palette first. I literally just do this. I sit here like this and I just put it on my palette knife and then just go in like that. I could have used the brush and done it with the brush. Okay, I love the gold against the black. Now because I am doing it thicker like this, and I'm pushing it with my palette knife, I may end up with a little bit of the paint underneath those edges like I was telling you about, as opposed to if I use the brush, it's not going to go underneath. But when I paint, I tend to paint faster and I tend to paint more with an organic look. So it doesn't bother me if paint gets underneath there. All right, so let's go ahead and put some of this one on there. Some of this beautiful, this is my favorite yellow. It's, what do they call it? Bright yellow, but it has a lot of white in it and it's quite opaque. Oh, so pretty. And it looks great on the black too. Woo! Okay, there we go. So once you're done putting your paint in your, in there, then we're gonna put up. I usually will wait just a moment so it kind of begins to get firm before I pull this off. And now let's go ahead and pull this off. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing I'm going to do before we pull it off. This is a spray. This is also by Ranger. Hey, Fart Queen, welcome in over on Whatnot. This is called Dilutions Mica Spray. So what this has in it, and you can hear the little marble in there, right? But it's just a sparkly spray. Oh, you're in Ohio at a wildlife refuge. That sounds like fun. So here is the first opportunity to just spray right into, come on. So, let me make sure this is working okay. I haven't used this for a while, so, well, it started to work right here. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a spray with mica shimmer on it onto black. That works really well on black, and I'm using it through the stencil. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take this off of here. Woohoo! Be very careful when you lift it. You want to lift it straight up. because you don't want to mess up your design, right? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to hold it down over here so it doesn't lift. And then I have this last little piece of tape over here. So I'm just going to gently lift from the corner, right up like that. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I want this to go right into my tray. I have a butcher tray right next to me, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to dip it. I'm going to flip it over so that the paint side is down and put it right in my wet tray next to me. Now, let me show you what happened here. When I used the brush, can you wait until it dries to pull the stencil, or will that peel the paint? Good question, Crazy Junk Art. It will peel the paint. Because if you notice here, a little bit, because I was aggressively using the palette knife, a little bit of the paint went underneath. So if I had let that dry, it would have stuck to the paper. And when I pulled it off, it would have torn the paper. So it is better to let it, some people will use a heat gun and start it to drying. So just boop, 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 just a little bit over top of it with the heat gun, and then, but not fully dry, just to get the drying process started. Now the area over here, this is where I use the brush in there, and then this is where I use the palette knife. Now you're going to notice where I use the brush is it's very thin, and where I use the palette knife, it's a lot thicker on there. And then of course where I use the spray, I love the sparkle sprays. Yeah, let me use the sparkle spray without having it in. Let's see if I can get it to come out. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Is it going to come out? If not, okay. Now, because it's not coming out, I know what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to clean this. I have to clean this in alcohol. So that's the solvent that you're going to use for these kind of paints that we're working with is alcohol. So if this is all bunged up like it is right now, just drop it in a little cup of alcohol and let it do its thing. Let it take it out. Okay, so that's on black. Oh, so pretty. And then why don't we do this with the black gesso, right? This is a collage that I started earlier, so it is all acrylic, right? It's acrylic paint in the background. And then it's also, I collaged all of these elements, these paper elements, onto the surface using it looks white, but it dries clear, a gel medium. Now, when I'm working with paper, I prefer to use the matte version of it. But if I'm going over top of a shimmery paint, I don't want the matte finish here. I want a shiny finish. So then I use the gloss medium. So realize that a lot of times the acrylic mediums come in gloss, satin, and matte, or just gloss and matte. So in this case, I've used matte on there, and the gesso, we're going to do a black gesso with a, oh, look at that. Look at that. It's so pretty. All right, let's see. What are we going to use here? How about, let me go here. Oh, let's use this. What the heck? This was free 99, and it came from apples or oranges or something like that. So let's put that down there. And I'm going to use my palette knife. You use the bottom of the palette knife like this. Okay. And then I'm going to put it across here. And I'm just going to hold it in place. And again, a lot of what I do is very organic, so I'm not going to try to make it perfect. Okay. Now, as you had asked earlier, Crazy Junk Art, could I wait before I pull it up? Yes, because something like this is throwaway, right? something like this. The next time I go and get more apples, I can get some more, or onions or lemons or whatever happen to come in it, limes. Then I can get more of that netting, so I don't worry too much about it having the acrylic stay on there. So let's use the heat tool then and just gently go over it here. Just a little bit. You don't want to get this plastic too hot, because then the plastic will curl, as it's beginning to do on the edges here. So you do kind of have to be careful with that. And then, oh, you can see here it ended up going underneath quite a bit. So I've got texture, but it didn't completely, you see there how some of it went underneath? Because it's not like your typical stencil in the way that a stencil is designed. Let's see. Let me find a stencil that has an interesting effect and put it up here, and then we'll see. These are professionally cut stencils here. Let me see what would be a good one for that corner. Oh yeah, I like this. Love this one. This is one of the Tim Holtz ones. So I'm going to pull this apart. I'm going to find that one and pull it out. There we go. See how the very organic looking again? Okay, let me put these back inside here. See how this kind of keeps my studio organized? Kind of. So let's use a paint, because this gesso is a little more flowy than a paint. So what color paint do I want to use up in that corner? I would really like to use a shimmer blue. Let's use the spray. Let's use a shimmer blue spray. So this is kind of an aqua. You see the aqua? Grocery shopping is going to take longer now. Right, crazy junk art. Okay, so this is the, what I told you was the permanent mixed media spray, and you can find the links to these on my website. So I'm going to hold this down. Of course, I'm going to end up with paint all over my hands. That's the way it goes. Ooh, this one doesn't want to spray out right either. Oh well, I guess we're doing some really organic looking stuff today. If you don't use these for a while, they can get sort of gunked up. But so that didn't work right. It's all right. It's still going to leave a little bit of a design there. Okay. So that one didn't work right because my spray wasn't working right. Let's see. Maybe there's another one where it is working right. Let's test it. Let's test it first. Oh yeah, that one's working much better. Okay, let's do that one. So we're going to do this and just sort of lay it across here. And then there. Let's try that. Okay, that's better. That's mo better. So now you can see the dots there from the spray, right? That went through this. Of course, we'll also try the orange spray that we made, right? Let's try the orange spray. I still have that blue spray on there, so let me just wipe that off. And we'll go the other way over here. Okay, and now we're going to try. Now, I'm doing this what's called alla prima, meaning all at one time. And that's just because we're in a continuous demonstration. But normally, I would wait for one layer to dry before I would try the next layer. So let's try this one. Let's make, oh yes, it's coming out nicely. This was what we made with the fluorescent tube paint and airbrush medium, but you could also use flow medium. Okay, I'm going to push this down here. Nice. Let's see how that did. Wink. All right, so now I've got some orange. I've got some orange dots in here now too. Nice. And I got a little bit extra over here, so I'm going to dab that up. There are a few little bubbles, so I'm going to pop the bubbles, pick some of that up. There we go. Oh, how fun is that? I even got a few dots up here near the bird stamp. That's a postage stamp. Nice. Hey, let's go ahead and do another giveaway while we're at it. And let's see. Giveaway, giveaway, giveaway. Okay, let me get that started. Here we go. Givey number 2. Yes. Run Givey number 2. It started. So I had mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have some stencils from my buddy Ed Roth up at Stencil One. So that's stencil1.com. And if you're on YouTube and you want to participate in the giveaways, scan the whatnot code at the top of your screen or go into the description of the video and come join us over on Whatnot, where I do giveaways and also have an auction after the class of items that I have that I've made that are for sale. So these are the 3 choices. There's a rose design and a pop art design and a pineapple. And so these are what you're going to get to win one of those. So join in the giveaway and please share with your friends. Now, here I've got some paint left on there, right? As a matter of fact, when I picked it up, you can see that. So I do like to use that. And let me get a piece of paper here. So where is my page? Now, this is the watercolor paper, Canson XL that I showed you earlier. So here we go. Here we go. Let's just lay it right down on here and try picking up whatever's on the palette. Why not? Why not? A lot of what I do is very mixed media. Okay, so there was a little bit of paint came on there, and then there's some paint on the bottom of this. So let me move this out of the way. What we're going to do right now is with the leftover paint, I'm just going to use my paper towel and I'm going to push it into the holes here. So it depends on how much paint is in there. And then of course there was some paint on the back. So I'm getting a little bit down there. Let's put some more on. There. And then over here, a little bit. And then let's, again. Now I could take a brush. So this is just a regular brush. Let me get it a little bit wet. I love this golden Taklon, that type of top to it brush. So I'm going to just brush it right through here, what's left on there. So then I get a little bit more subtle effect instead of a bold effect of spraying directly in it. Now I could also pick up some paint. So if I had paint like this, I can put a little bit of paint on my brush. And then just brush right through it like that. This is more of a subtle effect, right? Because this is using a regular paintbrush instead of using a stencil paintbrush. So you can brush like this. Now, if I wanted to get a bolder effect, what would I do? I'd put it on the flat stencil brush, so the stencil brush that's flat there, and then I would do this, pouncing up and down. So you're going to notice this is going to be a lot more concentrated through the stencil like that. Oh yeah. All right. So let's pick this up. Ta-da! Nice. And then there's more paint on here, so I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to do this. So when I'm creating mixed media pieces, it's what I call a push and a pull. I'm constantly, hey, Salmon's Girl, welcome in, and Boutique Chic, welcome in. Join the giveaway. We're giving away some Stencil One stencils from my buddy Ed Roth. So that you'll see that I'm doing a lot of pushing and pulling. So putting in, pulling off, putting in, pulling off, using the front, using the back. Okay, so let's see what that gave us. Little bit there, a little bit of residue. And then what am I going to do with this? You can see there's a lot of paint already on it, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to flip it upside down and put it in my butcher tray. So let me show you the butcher tray over here. This is what I was talking about when I said a butcher tray. And this is a metal tray. You'll see it's about 1.5 inches deep. And then I keep an old toothbrush in there. And then I just throw my stencils in as I'm working. If I wanted to reuse that and I wanted to clean it, I could quickly use the brush and do that. Okay, so Salmon's Girl says, sorry I missed your lesson. Well, we are in the middle of the lesson, so you haven't missed everything yet. We have more fun to go. Okay, so let's see what else we can do with stencils. What I wanted to do was show you a little bit of my process for collage, and then we're going to do some more stenciling on top of that. So I have one of the things that I have on Whatnot in my Buy Now. So if you go to the little house at the bottom of the screen and then you look in under the Buy Now tab, if you type in supplies, you're going to find something called a scrap pack. So it's going to come to you sort of like this. And it's a scrap pack of artist papers. This one happens to have a map in it. There's also under supplies some really cool tea bags that give you sort of a luminescent look. Let's pull one of the tea bags out and use it. My favorite, the paper packs. Yes, thank you, Salmon's Girl. I know you've bought many paper packs. I appreciate it. That I curate for y'all. And then this is an Asian paper pack. So you can see very oriental. This is Joss paper. That's a big pack that you get. This one actually has some dragons on it. The Joss paper pack are not papers that are necessarily dye, like the dye sometimes will run, but it just becomes part of your art, right? And then the last thing that's under supplies in the Buy Now is these are postage stamps. So I grew up collecting postage stamps, love postage stamps. And so there's something called a postage stamp pack. So you get a pack of 20 or more stamps like this. When you order from me, they're domestic and mostly international. Okay, so let me put that aside. And let's just collage a few things down so you can kind of see the process of what I use when I'm doing this. Let me set that one aside right there. Ooh, let's use a map. Let's use some map. So I have this old atlas from England, and it has a whole bunch of course, maps in it. And so I'm just going to pull this off, which is a piece of map from that book. And we'll put some map on here. We'll do a little bit of the, what I like about using the empty tea bags is that they are translucent, so you can still see the paint through it right there. And then I also love using these sort of transparency papers like this one right here. Very natural looking. Let's throw that one right there. So this is how I build my, oh, let's see, there's a fish over here. What else do I want to use? The fish. See how this fish, this is a napkin. So napkins are generally 4-ply if you find the really good napkins. Oh, did somebody win already? Okay, who won? Who won the givey? Because I see the givey is over. Who won the givey? Who won? Who won? Did it say? I should be able to see here somewhere, right? Who won the givey? Let's see if I go here. Oh, Salmon's Girl, you won the givey. Thank you, Crazy Junk Art. So Salmon's Girl, I have the rose, I have the pop art, and I have the pineapple. These are compliments of my buddy Ed Roth, there's Ed right there over at Stencil One. So you tell me which one you want. If you want the pop art circles, the pineapple, or the rose, I'll be sending you one of those. And then the rose. Okay, let me put your name with that. And then we'll have 2 more to go during the show. This is going to go to Salmon's Girl. Yay, congratulations. And if you don't already follow Salmon's Girl, follow her. She has some fabulous shows if you're over on Whatnot. All right, Salmon's Girl right there, the rose. Cool. Set that one aside. Then we have the pop art circles, and we have the pineapple yet to go for the show. You are welcome. As Salmon's Girl said, thank you. So this is a napkin, and if I find napkins with really cool designs, then I save them and I pull them apart. They're generally 4-ply, so you want to pull all of the plain white parts off of it and just keep this filmy top part like that. And then that is going to go right on top of there. Again, it's very translucent. And then I make marbled papers, and I have them available for sale after the show, after the lesson, as part of the auction. And so this is some of my marbled paper with some hearts on it. Let's cut this out like this. And then like that. Maybe I'll just leave it like that. Yep. Okay. So let me show you how I collage these papers on. And we are going to use the palette paper again. So let's see if the palette paper is dry. It's most of the way dry. Let's just rub our cloth over it and get any little bit that's still wet up. There we go. So I can keep working right on here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put palette paper here so I can work off of the palette. And I'm going to show you real quick what I do for my collages. I build the collages, so I what I call audition all of the pieces, and then I undo in order the pieces like that. And then I go ahead and I collage them on. So today I'm using the Liquitex matte gel. So as I mentioned before, I like using matte when I'm working with paper. And you can see this is almost a brand new one. I must have gotten it on sale somewhere because usually I'm using the Pebeo matte gel medium in a tube. And just today I happened to find this one and I thought, oh, let me introduce you to Liquitex's version. Now I can either put it directly on the back of my paper here. I'm not worried about getting it on this paper because I'm going to be collaging more items on there. Plus it dries matte, so it's just going to look like the paper. Anyway, okay, so and we're going to put this over here. Move it in just a little bit. All right, cool. Now I decided to move it in this way just a little bit there because when you are building your artwork, think about putting it into a frame. That's what I do. So this will go into an 11 by 14 mat. And I'm going to show you that real quick right now. So periodically as I'm working, I grab my mat, and then I audition, okay, how's it going to look? And it helps if it's, can you use Mod Podge? Crazy Junk Art asked. Absolutely, you can use Mod Podge. Now, in the past, when I've used Mod Podge in Florida, where I am, I found that it remained sticky and didn't get as dry as I would have liked. And part of that is, A, it could have been old. You know, I could have had it for a long time before I tried it. Or B, it could just be because it's so dang humid here in Florida. So for me, if you're using a matte gel medium, which is an acrylic medium, then I just find, for me, that's more professional. But if you have Mod Podge, definitely use what you have. Okay, so I'm auditioning my artwork regularly with my mat. So I always keep a black and a white mat close at hand in order to make sure that the artwork is coming out the way I want it. Now this edge is starting to stick up, which means it doesn't have quite enough underneath there. So I'm going to put a little bit more underneath there. Okay. And you can see that I'm using a palette knife to do this, but you absolutely could use a brush. So don't worry if you don't have palette knives. If you don't have palette knives, but you would like some, there are links on my website where when you go to my website, dietzart.com, that's DIETZART.com. If you go to the menu item called supply links, you'll be able to find some palette knives, a link to palette knives that I recommend. Okay, so here, because this is very delicate, I don't want to put the gel medium directly on it. What I'm doing instead is I'm putting the gel medium on the paper, and then I will set this down where I want it. So let's set this like right there. There we go. Now, the cool thing about tea bags, besides the fact that they're kind of grungy and translucent, which is lovely, you can actually draw on top of this tea bag before you put it on your artwork. And what I do is I use, I use a micron pen. So you see where it says micron there? Sakura Micron. And these are permanent markers. There are other brands of permanent markers as well, but I do drawings with a permanent marker on there. And then because it's permanent, once that marker is dry, you can do exactly what I'm doing now, and it will stay on. It won't. The lines will stay where you had put them in your design, and they will not smudge. Smudge. Okay, awesome. I love the tea bags. So as I said, if you want to buy any tea bags like this, I have a whole bunch of yellowish tea bags right now because I was drinking some turmeric tea, and turmeric is a yellow herb. So it was coming out yellow, and I have some nice tea bags for that. Okay, so let's put some over here. And I'm going to put this really cool looking green right here. Okay, and now I'm going to use what's nice also about using the matte acrylic is when the matte acrylic dries, or if Crazy Junk Art, you were asking about Mod Podge, when that dries, if you're using the matte version, you're able to easily draw on top of it. If you're using the gloss version, it's not always as easy to draw on top of. Hey there, what is it? Brandy Greet. Welcome in over on Whatnot. Let's see, I'm just looking to see if I have any more questions over here on YouTube. No? Okay. Now, here is that napkin. The napkin there is a bottom and a top. So there's the back of it. The design you don't see very well on the back. There's the front of it. It's much more of a bold design. But you see how flyaway and flimsy this is. So I'm not going to put gel medium on the back of it. I'm going to, again, put it on the paper. So let's see where I want it to go. I think I want it to go like right there. Okay. So again, I could be using a brush to do this. As a matter of fact, let's use a brush. Let's use a brush. So where are my brushes? This is the brush I would use for that. I would get like a brush with a nice big head like this. Okay. And then the difference is when you're using the brush, you're going to see a lot of brush strokes, which, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to move it over just a little bit more. And now I'm going to start. Notice I'm holding it up, and I'm just starting with the edges, moving from the middle out. This is the way that I can put it on and not have too many wrinkles. I may end up with wrinkles, or I may not. Hopefully I won't. But that's
holding it up and working it. Work it. Work it. There's a little bit of wrinkles in there, but not too bad. Okay. Awesome. Let me get a little bit more of this. It's okay to put this gel medium right on top of your paper. Oh, I love that. I love that puffer fish. If y'all have ever been in the Caribbean, you see, or in the Barrier Reef, you see puffer fish all over the place. And they're super cool. Did you know, fun fact, the puffer fish grinds up coral. When it eats, it has a very hard, what's called a mandible. It has a very hard mandible, and it crushes coral, and that's how you create sand. That's how the sand, it's one of the ways that the sand gets created on the bottom of the ocean, is from these little guys. They're crazy, right? Okay, cool. Cool. So now we've got lots of nice layering going on there from the collage. And now we can put more. Let's put more of the stenciling on top. Now, see how I have some, another reason that I really like using a palette knife, I have some left on the palette knife, and I can just go like this and put it right back into the container. And what I do with the container before I close it, I want to be sure, when you're using gel mediums, it can sometimes, well, it acts like a glue, just like I'm gluing down this paper, right? And so when you go to close this, it helps if you put a little bit of, let me find it. Where did I put it? Okay, it was right here. Yes, there it is. Petroleum jelly. So I have a little bit of Vaseline petroleum jelly. So I'm just going to get some on my fingers here. And what you want to do is you want to go around the top like this. Oh, come on. Go around the top like this. And then I also go around here. And that will help you to be able to reopen it later. Because sometimes if you're very messy and it gets all over here, your medium, then it can be difficult to open the next time. But if you put the petroleum jelly on, not only does it help to seal it, but it also helps to make it easy to open the next time. I always travel with the little one. I have a small one, and I travel with that when I'm traveling to paint. Oops, we didn't put these little hearts on here, but that's okay. Those can go on another layer, right? Because right now notice how we have the really cool, in the background, we have the really cool stenciling back in there. Awesome. And a little bit more down here. So that just gives a nice layered interest to what we're working on. And then let's go ahead and do some more stenciling here. Now I like let's do this one that I showed you earlier, which was this big one. See, this is the 12 by 12, but I don't have to use the whole thing. I can just pick parts of it and use parts of it to put my design on there. Okay. And this one I'm going to hold instead of taping down. And you know what? Let's go ahead and run another, because we're getting close to the end of the workshop. So let's go ahead and run another giveaway. So we've got the pineapple to choose from and the pop art circles. So we're going to run this giveaway. Let me see here. Give you number 3. Woohoo! Okay, it started. So jump in on the giveaway. There's this is from my friend Ed Roth at Stencil One, which you can check out all of his stencils at stencil1.com. He even has makeup stencils, so really cool stencils that you put up against your face, and then you would use your makeup, because he does live in New York. So come on, there are a lot of stage type people there. Right? Okay, so let's use the yellow that I love so much. Now this yellow is the bright fluorescent yellow, and we have the bright fluorescent yellow here. Maybe instead we'll use this kind of a pale yellow, right? So let's go ahead here And I'm going to get that on my palette knife like this. So here again, I'm going to put it directly onto my palette knife. And I like having a nice, you know, like a what I would call a heavy body. This is a medium to heavy body paint in these tubes. So you see how it's not sliding, it's not moving there. It's just staying on the bottom of my palette knife. So what I'm going to do now is with the design, I'm going to link together what's going on here. See this hard corner right here? I'm going to soften that corner by pulling this over the corner like it is. So I'm going to just hold that down best I can. Like I said, I don't mind if it looks organic. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's just my aesthetic. If you wanted it to be perfect, you could put it on a brush and use it with a brush. Okay. I need some more. Let's see. Hopefully it'll stay in place. Usually once I put some paint on it, it'll that helps to kind of hold it down. Okay. And then I want to come off of here just in a very organic way. All right. Think. Nice. Now there's a little bit of extra paint here, so I'm going to scrape that off. And this is too big to fit in my little tray. So I'm going to initially spray it with a little bit of water to keep it moist, and then I'll wipe it off in just a minute. Actually, I think I can put it upside down in my tray. That little bit actually fit in my tray upside down. Now I'm going to take the paint off of here, off of the palette knife. And the cool thing again about using a palette knife is you can sort of scrape this off of there. Scrapey, scrapey. And this whole painting doesn't, I can just use it in the painting, all right? Just put it somewhere else. Like I don't want this funky line right here. So I'm just gonna scrape it right up there. Why not? There's a little bit here. I'm just gonna scrapey it right down there. Okay. So I like using thick paint like that through a stencil, and then you can see it gives a lot of dimension to what it is that you're putting on there. Okay, and then we're going to do a little bit more spraying. So let's find, let me see. We've got sort of an under the sea thing going on there, right? So that's why it helps to have lots of stencils. This stencil sort of has the feel of under the sea. He's looking good. Thank you, Salmon's girl. So you see how this has the feel of waves right here? So let's use that one. Oh, I did tell you I was going to show you using, this is the paper lace doilies. So we'll do that. And these, you have to pull apart like that. And the cool thing with the doilies is you use them. Let's use this first with the spray. And then after you've used them and they have colors on them, then you can embed them in your artwork, right? Because they're just more paper ephemera for you to use. And these are the funky little pieces that come off of there. They're getting stuck in my paint. Stop it. There we go. Okay. See, I don't care if it's not perfect. Okay, here we go. Let's put this down here. And then I'm going to spray through that. And you get this beautiful lacy effect. What color? What color? Oh, let's go with some more green. Since I have, let's see, who was it? Salmon's girl won again. Woohoo! Okay, Salmon's girl, do you want the pineapple or the pop circles? Pineapple or pop circles? Okay, there we go. Circles are good. Yes, I love circles. Love circles. Okay, hold on. I'm going to put it with your rose. So then they're both together. There we go. We got your rose and your pop circles. And I'm going to tell you in a few minutes how to get that paint off of there, okay? So don't let me finish without telling you how to take the paint off. Now the cool thing here is this is a little tacky. So I like that because it's actually holding down my my paper. I see these little, that's the only thing with these. You have to kind of pop out these extra pieces of paper or not. It's up to you. But there we go to get the lace design. And then we're going to put that down here. And then I'm going to use the green. So this is the Mixed Media Art Spray by Marabou. If you need to know where to find it, go to my website. So that's deetsart.com. And then look under the supply links, and you will find these art sprays. You click there, and it'll take you to where you can purchase them. All right, let's see if this will work, if the spray is working okay. Come on, you can do it. When these get old, they don't spray right. Okay, it's not spraying right. I'm gonna have to clean that with alcohol. Let's try another one. Let's try this one I used earlier, I think. Oh, this is a cool looking green. You can see from the bottom here. Okay, let's try this one. Let's try this one. Are you gonna work? Let's see. Yes. So you're gonna see here in just a second when I pull this up, it gives you the design of the lace. But also because this is paper, it starts to color it, and then this piece of lace paper becomes ephemera that I can use. Hey, Love Be My Motive Studio, welcome in. This becomes paper ephemera that I can glue down into my paper, into my artwork later. So that just becomes more ephemera. But here, let me bring it closer so you can see right there. You see how it gets in there? Oh, that is so cool. That's why it's really handy to have some of these art sprays with the permanent inks in them. Okay. If you were not here earlier, I showed how to make your own permanent sprays with just an empty bottle and then some acrylic paint and a flow medium or airbrush medium. So this is an acrylic airbrush medium. Okay, with paint. So you can always go back and watch it. I found an artist that I think you'll appreciate. I'm going to tag you in her show. Ah, okay, cool. Thank you, Love Be My Motive Studio. That sounds wonderful. Okay, so that put that in there. Now, if I feel like it's a little bit too much because it's covering over some of my map, then I can just spray it with water like this while it's still damp, and I can pick some of it up. And by picking some of it up, what I'm doing is making it a little bit more translucent. The design is still there, but it's a little more translucent. So here it's more prominent, and here it's more translucent, so you can see the map. The map doesn't disappear. When it was too heavy, the map sort of disappeared. Okay, good. And then, now of course, with a piece like this, I might put more on collage. I'll let that dry and then put more collage on top. Hey, here we go. Here are the waves. Let's put the waves over here like that. And then let's see, what are we going to do with the waves? I think I will use a blue, right? There's a nice rich blue. What's the other? Oh, I like this blue better. I like this blue better. So let's see if I can get this blue to come out okay. Yep, there we go. Beautiful. There are some waves, and then let's do some waves down. Yeah. See, this is still wet. Normally I would let that dry. But we are going to live dangerously. And I'm just going to put that right down there. And we're going to spray right into there. There. So now I've got some of that here and some of that here, and that will tie the design together. Woo! Now I have spray everywhere, including my hands. All right. And this, as I said, you can see that I have paint that was left on there. And I don't mind if my stencils get dirty, but I have right next to me here, I'm going to flip it upside down so the sprayed part is going into my tray. And I'm going to show you my tray again since people weren't here earlier. It is a butcher tray. Oops, let me come down a little bit so you can see it. It's a butcher tray, and I have a little bit of water in it, so it's shallow, about 1.5 inches deep. And I just put water in it. I have an old toothbrush, and that's where I put my stencils to keep them wet until I'm ready to clean them. Now here again, there's a little bit of excess right there. So if there is a little excess, you just dab it off like that. Oh, and I'm transferring a little bit of the color over here so that there's not such a hard edge right there, right? Okay, cool. That is it for that part of the show. As I said, I would normally let this dry, and I will definitely go back and add more layers. I'll add my postage stamps that I like to put in it, but you'll be able to see that there's some really cool texture going on here from the stencils. And are there any other questions about stenciling? Oh, I am going to show you how I clean my stencils. So while I'm cleaning it, let's do the last giveaway. Hold on just a second here. The last giveaway will be for this pineapple from my buddy Ed Roth over at Stencil One. This is his business. And here is Ed right there. And so I got these from Ed at a show, and I thought I'd share them with y'all. So that is running. Jump in on the giveaway if you like, and I will show you how I clean my stencils. Okay, let's set this puppy aside. Oh, there we go. So one way that I clean my stencils is because they're damp. And here, this is just an old toothbrush. Oh, thanks for the little hearts. I appreciate it. And so having kept them damp like this makes it super easy to just go over them with this soft toothbrush, and that preserves the delicate stencils. But I'm also going to show you how I get this stuff that's already on there off. Let's see, now this one had paint on it. The other one that I just did had spray on it. This one had acrylic paint on it. And so I'm just gently rubbing over that. And you'll see that that will come clean as well. And then remember to do the backs, because sometimes the paint will it will go through the back. There we go. Now there's a little bit of something stuck on there, which is probably from me laying it down on top of the paint that was not done yet, right? Okay, and this one. So you can see most of the time, if I have thinner paint, I just leave it on there. I don't worry about it. Alcohol inks, stuff like that, I really don't worry about it. But this does help a lot to keep the paint from sticking. So here's this netting. It completely came off. Here's this one from earlier. It's almost completely off just from soaking. Okay, good. So those are ones where most of the paint has come off from soaking, but let me show you this one with some alcohol. So let's wipe this one off. Let's wipe the water off of there with a new paper towel. And the solvent for acrylic is alcohol. And of course, alcohol comes in super, super strong, like you would get at the hardware store, called denatured alcohol. Or there's the alcohol that you get at the grocery store or the drugstore called isopropyl alcohol. So they'll both work. Of course, you want to test it on your stencils first in a small area to be sure that it's not going to eat the plastic that the stencils are made from. Don't want to eat the plastic, right? And okay, let me do this side because it's got a lot of water. I want to get rid of that water before I use the alcohol. I put a video about this on my on my YouTube shorts, and somebody wrote me a message and said, "Is this a joke? This doesn't work." And I'm like, I've been doing it for 20 years. It definitely works. You may just have to soak it if the paint has been on there a long time, like this one. This one's had the paint on there for a long time. So what I do is I use isopropyl alcohol. So here's the isopropyl alcohol, just like that. See, it's from Walgreens. And I put it in a spray bottle, but you could also just take it right out of the bottle. And so here it is in a spray bottle. And then I'm going to spray an area here. And you're going to need to let it sit because you need to let it break down the acrylic. Now, if this is alcohol ink, it may or may not come out. Sometimes alcohol ink is very much a staining ink. But let's see. Yeah, here it's coming off. You see that? See how I'm just scraping it right off? There it is, coming right off. So you do need, sometimes if it's really like baked on there, or if the surface of your stencil is very textured, like this is a very smooth stencil, so it's coming off quite easily using the alcohol. See, I can even wipe it off with my paper towel. So let's spray this area right here a little bit more. So see, I've just sort of soaked it. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. I've soaked it with the alcohol. Oh, 7 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Who's going to get that last stencil? Gabriel Lee. Yay. Hey, Gabriel Lee. This is the Stencil 1 stencil that you're getting. It's a pineapple. But you see the paint that's on there? This is what you're going to do to clean off the paint if you want to. Of course, you don't have to. Let me write your name and put it with that. Congratulations. Oh, I see I didn't show you the mask, so I will do that real quick. Hold on a second. But let me finish up with showing you this. Let me put your name on there. Gabriel Lee. Perfect. Good, good, good. Oops. My marker's almost out. Let's try another one. There we go, Gabriel Lee. Perfect. That's very exciting. I don't know if you were here earlier, Gabriel, when I said that these are stencils that are designed by my friend, Ed Roth, New York City. And I did a show with him, and these were stencils that he had left over after the show, and he gave me a whole fistful of them. So I thought I'd share them with my peeps on Whatnot. And I'm excited for y'all to get them and try them. But this is how you clean them if you want to clean that paint off. And here I'm just being very careful with the thin bits here. And I am using my fingernail with the cloth here, and I'm wiping over it. Remember, we sprayed it with rubbing alcohol and just let it sit for a few minutes. And that's how you can clean this off, just like that. You see how that came off of there? Isn't that crazy? So there you go. You can see that I was able to wipe it off with a cloth or scrape it off with a palette knife. So the parts that have the alcohol on them, they'll come off with the scrapey scrape. The parts that don't have alcohol on them, a little tiny bit comes off, but it's really, really hard. So definitely the trick is spray it with rubbing alcohol, and then you can get it off of there. If you want to clean it, as you can see, I don't always clean it. I did here. This has been an awesome show. Aw, thank you, Gabriel Lee. So you can see there using the alcohol. You can, if it's stubborn, what you can do is fill that tray that I showed you a moment ago. So my butcher tray, I would just fill it with some of that rubbing alcohol and then put these in there and let them soak for 20 minutes, half an hour, come back and then use your soft toothbrush or, a cloth like this and wipe over it gently and take that off. All right, that's how you're going to clean them. Woohoo! Okay, one last thing before we get to the auction part of the show that I wanted to show you was using a mask. So we've been using stencils, and right along with stencils, oftentimes what will happen is you get a stencil and it'll have two parts to it. It'll have the complete stencil with what was inside the holes of the stencil, because what a normal stencil has these holes in it, right? Like this one has all the holes in it. But sometimes, depending on the design, you can get one that has a stencil with a large hole in it, and then they give you the insert, the part that was inside that big hole. And the part inside the big hole is called a mask. So here, on a piece of watercolor paper, I'm going to show you how we use the mask. And so here's a really cool looking mask right here. I'll put that up in the corner. And here is a crown. So you see those two masks there. And these are from Tim Holtz Ideology. Tim Holtz Ideology. And actually, what I want to do is put this one down here and put the crown up here. And then, now normally with a mask like that, I would use a spray. You absolutely can hold them down or spray one side. There's something called a stencil adhesive that you can spray on one side of your masks or your stencils, and it'll make it tacky, and that'll help you to put it in place, and then you could go over top of it with your brush or your palette knife if you wanted to. Now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray over it because I just love the sprays. They're so much fun. Of course, I've got them all over my hands because that's what happens. But that's why in the beginning, if you weren't here, I covered my hands with something called invisible glove. So this is not up on my website in the supply links yet, but I'm going to put it up tonight. It's called a barrier cream. You put it on your hands when you know you're going to get your hands all dirty with paint, and you don't want to wear gloves. This acts as an invisible glove. It's like a silicone, or some of them are a cream. And then that protects your hands so that later when I go to wash my hands, all that color will just wash right off. But those, the links to that will be in my website this evening. I'll put them in after the show. So this is the spray that we made. It's a permanent spray by using tube acrylic paint. And I used the golden airbrush medium. So I used an acrylic medium that's very flowy. And you can also buy something called flow medium that I know that Liquitex has flow medium. And it helps the acrylic to run. So here's this beautiful orange color that we made ourselves. And let's spray it here. So I'm going to cover this with that beautiful bright orange. There we go. And then you can wait just a minute in order to let it set, or I'm impatient, so I'm just going to kind of come around here like this a little bit. Normally I wait just a little bit because I want to be sure that it doesn't soak underneath, which it might do. We shall see, right? Let's use the palette knife and pick this mask up and see what we have. See, it did soak underneath because it's quite a wet spray. It soaked underneath there too. Dang it. Okay, let's do it with a, what is it called? A stencil brush. We're going to use a stencil brush instead because I made my spray a little too wet. Okay. So let's use the stencil brush. Earlier, I showed a stencil brush is a brush that is flat on the top here. You see how that's flat on the top? And so we're going to do that again, where we put this down there. And instead, we're going to use the stencil brush. So let me get a, what's a good color for around that? Let's do some shimmery red. So what I'm going to do is put it down on my palette like that. And then I'm going to pick some of it up on my, but I don't want to put it like juicy like that onto over top of my mask. Instead, I want to pounce it a little bit. And this is palette paper, but you could do it just on a paper plate too. So I want to have just enough. And let me hold it here. So this paint has a little more body to it. The spray for this particular mask, the mask is a little too detailed for it. So we're going to go around it. What I like is that the tube paints are a little more, have a little more body to them. So I can go into here and pick up some more. This will work beautifully. So we're pouncing straight up and down with the stencil brush. Okay. And this is how you would do it on fabric also. If you had a fabric paint, you would use stencil brushes like this. Okay. So we'll just go around that, make it look pretty. Make it look pretty. Oh, that's fun. Okay. And then we will go ahead, let me put that aside. I'll use my palette knife. We'll lift this up. Dink. There we go. Ah, that is so fun. So that is a mask instead of a stencil. All right. So a stencil has the holes in it. The mask is where the design is going to have the background show through. So of course this has acrylic paint on it. So I'm going to flip it upside down and I'm going to put it in my tray that's next to me. Oh, that's so cute. I love that. I do like masks. So you can buy masks. And this one actually says right on the back of it, on the label, it says mask. So that's how a mask works as opposed to a stencil. Alrighty. Let's see here. I'm just looking to see if there are any last questions. How did you make the spray? Oh, Salmon's girl said, sorry, there was noise in the background. So what I did to make the spray was there's only a tiny bit of water in here, just a tiny bit to help loosen it up. Instead of using lots of water, you're better off with your tube paints. So let's say you have tube paints or you have paints that come in a little jar, like those little 2-ounce jars, and you want to turn it into a spray. Well, you need it to be very water-like, but it's better if you don't just fill the whole thing with water, because if you fill it with water, what's going to happen is that it breaks down the adhesion of the acrylic paint. So you're going to use something like airbrush medium, which is acrylic medium, but it's very flowy, or you use something called flow medium, and that's what you put inside your jar together with your paint. Now, afterwards, it helps if you put a little marble in here of some sort or a little ball bearing, and then that will help you to mix the colors together. I didn't have a little ball bearing, so I shook it a lot, which means it's very foamy because acrylic medium gets foamy when you shake it. So ideally, I would leave this to sit for a half an hour before I would use it, and that would get rid of the foam. But then I was able to, this is just a little spray bottle that I bought from the drugstore. And so then you can make your own sprays by doing that. Now I could also take some airbrush medium or flow medium and add an ink to it. So these are, there are many different kinds of acrylic inks, not a watercolor ink. You want to add an acrylic ink. So for instance, here's a beautiful acrylic ink, which I could just put right into the bottle and spray with it, but I find it's highly concentrated, so you don't have to do that. You're better off using a few drops of the concentrated inks, acrylic inks, and then put it in with, because this is not a colored airbrush medium or flow medium. It dries clear. It looks white because, of course, acrylic mediums look white until they dry and then they're crystal clear. And so this will be clear when it's dry. So I could put a few drops of the cyan in a bottle like this, a spray bottle, and make my own ink with this concentrated color that's permanent and a little bit of flow medium or airbrush medium. You can make your own permanent sprays. On my website, though, I do have links to this Marabou mixed media art spray, and these are permanent sprays. So if you go to deetsart.com and then you look under the menu item supply links and scroll down, you'll be able to find those Marabou sprays if you want to play around with those. I do like those a lot. And they are permanent when they're dry, which is fantastic. Okay, so that was fun. There you go. That was the mask as opposed to an all-out stencil. All right, any other questions? Because otherwise I'm going to go ahead and get set up for the auction this evening. I appreciate you being with me for the evening's class. And I feel like if you just picked up the fact that you can use rubbing alcohol to clean off your stencils, I think that's huge. Or maybe the making your own sprays, that could also be a pretty cool idea, right? Okay, now you see this pink right here? Where can I put that pink? Because you know that I have a no paint left behind policy. So let's put that pink on another one of these. On my website, I have the Jack Richardson watercolor. So you can find these on my website under the supply links. It's some of my favorite paper to do this kind of work on. And this is the watercolor cards 4x6. That's what fits onto my greeting cards, are these watercolor postcards. Or you could just make a piece of artwork and send it as a postcard. That would be cool too. But they're very economical at 50 sheets. You can find that on my website, as well as this is also the Jack Richardson watercolor paper, 50 sheets, and it's 135 pounds. And this is the 6x9 size, which is great. It fits beautifully into an 8x10 frame. All right, so let me put those aside. That's what I was using for this. And what I do is I have those papers handy, and whenever I have extra paint, like for instance right now I've got all this orange right here. Let's just pick that up like that. Maybe I'll use let's use this brush right here. This is my no paint left behind policy, right? I like to use up the excess paints like this, because this becomes just my next piece. Okay, there's a bright pink right there. Plus, oh, there's a hair in it. That's a doggy hair, doggy DNA. And then there's a little bit of pink left in here. So let's just get that pink out. So now we've got a base for my next collage card right there with the leftover paint. Okay, cool. Nice. Right there on the postcard paper. And I actually have a whole stack of papers like this. Where are they? Hold on a moment. I show you. Right here. I have a whole stack of them. So when I have leftover paint, this is what I do, is I just put them on these 4x6 papers, and then they become my next base backgrounds for my greeting cards. for my collages. Okay, woohoo! So I'm just going to dunk these in water until later. Let's get this mask off to the side as well. Okay, thanks for joining me for the workshop.